Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Early Edge MLB edition. If you were with us last week, you got the win totals for all the divisions, all our favorite win totals in all the divisions. And this week, we're going to tell you who's going to win the division. I'm Sia Nejad, but I'm not going to tell you that. Let's bring in the stars of the show because there's three others that you know and love quite well. It's Mike McClure, it's AMags, it's Matt Snyder. I got to point out the chat because even though a lot of people listen to this via podcast, thank you for listening. We've got some people in here live. And Joe Neuenfeld says, I can't wait for baseball. And I got to be honest, Mike, last week when you reminded us that we were less than a month away from day baseball and betting Cubs games and things of that nature, I was really excited. So I'm really excited. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm great, Sia. Very excited. I love this stretch of the calendar in general because, like you, I love a lot of golf. We all love March Madness, and we all love day baseball and opening day, and we get that all really here in the next 30 days. And in baseball, we're talking 13 days away, gentlemen. When we're talking about a Tokyo series, Dodgers, Cubs, less than 2 weeks away. Yes, could not be more excited.
Wow, maybe that's a preview of the NLCS. Who knows? We're actually going to get into our favorites to win the division, or at least our favorite bets to win the division. But also, we're going to get into the NLCS, the ALCS, our World Series winner, and AL and NL MVP, things of that nature. Joe Neuenfeld also says, is that a Dumb and Dumber shirt? Sniper, your answer?
Absolutely, it is. So you're telling me there's a chance right there. And as we just learned from Mike before we came on the show, that's actually a sports movie because, as he pointed out so astutely, there is skiing in that, and skiing is a sport. So we can count that as a sports movie. I never thought about that before.
Yep. Count it. AMags, how you feeling today? Are we excited? Are some of these division bets, like some of them you like better than the others, or are there a few that you're locked in on?
Yeah, there's definitely some that you like better than others. I think there's value on a few of these numbers where, Sniper may talk about one, I may talk about another. We're going to kind of just run through it like that. But yeah, if you looked at my article as well, it was up on the SportsLine website. It had all the divisions and kind of went through it that way. So there's certainly some value to be found out there in these markets right now.
All right. Jeff Stenberg, your favorite Yankee hater, AMags, is already in the chat. We'll get to his comments in just a bit, but let's go to the Yankees. Let's go to the AL East. Actually, the Yankees, kind of a predictable AL East winner, and the number's not bad at all. So I'm not ridiculing anybody who takes the Yankees here, but it's interesting to note, Sniper, that you're one of the three that actually didn't take the Yankees. I assume you just like the number on this Red Sox team.
You're right. I mean, if you say, looking at them right now as constructed, the Yankees are definitely the team that's most likely to win the division, and the odds reflect as much. If you look at some of the projections, the Red Sox are only a couple games behind them, and you know that that's within the margin of error on stuff that can happen during the regular season, such as injuries, such as trade deadline acquisitions. And I do expect that the Red Sox, if they're close, and I think they will be aggressive at the trade deadline. So I'm looking at a team that was 9th in runs scored last year. They add Alex Bregman. They're going to get full seasons from Trevor Story and Tristan Casas, I believe. The rib injury really messed him up last year, and he missed a big chunk of the year. They were 81-81, but they're way better. You look at the rotation. Now they had Garrett Crochet. They had Walker Buehler, who was terrible pretty much all year last year, coming back from Tommy John surgery. But he looked really, really good in the playoffs, so maybe he's back to his old self. Lucas Giolito's coming back. They've got Tanner Houck, Brian Bayo coming back. I like the rotation. The bullpen, if Liam Hendricks and Aroldis Chapman have any juice left, they join Garrett Whitlock there at the back third. And again, I think they'll be aggressive in front of the trade deadline. So I like the number on the Red Sox, so I'll run with them. Like I said, I still think the Yankees are the most likely team to win it. So if you wanted to be safe or play the odds or anything, the Yankees are the pick. But I wanted to get a little crazy here.
Plus 425. I mean, this is, what's so interesting, Mike, and you're on the Yankees here at plus 110. This is a competitive division. So, you could argue this both ways, that maybe there's value on the other teams, but the Yankees as constructed certainly seem like the best team in what is already a tough AL East. Talk to me about your pick of the Yankees at plus 110 to win the AL East.
I just love the team. I think they got better. I know it's hard to say you get better when you lose a guy like Juan Soto, but I really think that this lineup is going to be extremely dangerous this year. And I love the pitching rotation. You can talk about Garrett Cole's age if you want, but adding Max Fried in there and just looking throughout the rotation, I think this team is going to have a ton of success. It's a lineup, again, built to the ballpark that they play in. And I think they've actually got enough depth here. Obviously, the big thing is going to be keeping Aaron Judge healthy. If Aaron Judge stays healthy, I think that this team is certainly going to be there. And I think they honestly should be about minus 125, minus 130, 57, 58% in the division. So I like them here plus 110.
AMags, you also like the Yankees. It does, as much as I say it's a competitive division, I would have thought this was like, to Mike's point, minus 110, minus 115. You like the Yankees, though. Tell me about, maybe why you think this number is plus 110. Because again, most, I guess, non-baseball people would walk into this conversation and be like, oh, I'm hammering the Yankees here. And they're probably right.
And I do think, to Sniper's point, at the plus 425 or 450 for the Red Sox, there's some value on that number, in my opinion. But just, I think at the end of the day, the Yankees are going to be deeper. They're going to be better. As Mike said, they have gotten better. I really do like these additions. Cody Bellinger, I'll talk about him a little bit later in the show, but I like that addition a lot. And the bullpen, just the bullpen in and of itself, the Yankees have been known to shorten games. It's kind of just what they do. And that bullpen, once again, is revamped and ready to go. I think that is probably the difference maker in the end. So yeah, I'm okay with the Yankees at plus 110 for sure. I agree with Mike. I think it should be worse than this.
All right, let's move on then. Let's move on to the AL Central. We have a lot of agreement here, but Mike McClure, I have to start with you. You're wearing the Kansas City Royals hat. You've been on this team at least since last year. Talk to me about why you like the Royals at a nice number, plus 270 to win the AL Central.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of a homer, but going to be honest with you, the division is wide open, and they have the best player, not only in the division, but maybe the second best player to Aaron Judge in the American League. And it's Bobby Witt, essentially entering his prime right now. And I like a lot of the stuff that they're doing around him. I also think that this is a team that if they can replicate some of the success they had last year, they will be extremely aggressive at the trade deadline, adding pieces. They will kind of push those chips in and spend a little bit and go after it. And I think that this year, even more so than last year, it's appropriate to do so when you look at the competition in this division. The question mark in the knock on Kansas City is always going to be the outfield, and offensively the outfield. Like it's not pretty, but you do have Bobby Witt, you've got Vinny Pasquantino, and you've got some of these other guys. The addition of Jonathan India, kind of the utility player, I think will actually fit pretty nicely here for Kansas City. But as much as this is a bet on Kansas City, it's also a bet against teams like Minnesota and Cleveland, who I think take steps backward a little bit. And of course, the White Sox will continue to not really be relevant here.
Sniper, I remember from last week's show, we talked about, as you chuckle at the White Sox comment, which of course is true, we all kind of talked about Minnesota and their ability to maybe stay healthy, the Cleveland Guardians and maybe them just overachieving last year. It does seem, if you were doing a process of elimination thing with respect to the AL Central, it does seem like the Royals come out on top at plus 270.
Yeah, I think the Tigers are going to take a step back from where they were last year. I think the Twins probably aren't as good as the total, for example, the gambling total says they are. Again, major concerns on the Twins in terms of health. I do really like the Royals, though. I think they're going to take a step forward. They won 86 last year, maybe up in the 90 range. I mean, that would be way over their over. Maybe I should have taken that last week, but I still like the Twins under. But anyway, like Bobby Witt does move the needle a ton, just like the way that Mike mentioned Aaron Judge on the Yankees, that moves the needle a lot. Bobby Witt Jr. being on the Royals, that moves the needle a lot. And I do think that, in addition to, they already added Jonathan India to the offense. That's probably going to be a quality addition there. Pasquantino, if he stays healthy all year, is a very good guy to put right behind Bobby Witt Jr. Salvador Perez is still going to hit his 20, 25 home runs at least. They're probably going to trade for more. They're already talking. There was a report, I believe, yesterday that said they were talking to the Mets about Starling Marte, and that wasn't completely dead. And I'm not necessarily saying they're going to get Marte, but it tells me that they're going to be aggressive for additions to the outfield, where Mike mentioned that they're weak. I like the rotation a lot there with Cole Reagans. I'll talk about him in a little bit. Spoiler alert. Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha. And at the back of the bullpen, they added Lucas Erceg last year in front of the trade deadline, and they added Carlos Estevez in the offseason. So if you look at the Royals from the first half last year, they've added 2 back-end relief aces since then. So there's a lot to like for me with this Royals team.
Yeah, we've got Ben pulling up some of the lineups for each of these teams. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see it. So, AMags, you also like the Royals, but instead of just having you kind of, talk about some of the things that have already been talked about, Ed Anarumo says no Tigers love. They played extremely well at the end of the year, and Riley Green looks primed for a huge breakout. So, as big as we are on the Royals, because you're on them at plus 270 as well, if somebody was going to spoil the party, or if maybe there was another team to look at, who would it be?
I think it's that Tigers team right there. When I look at the rest of the division, I have no confidence that the Twins are either going to be in a position to trade, at that deadline, or they're going to care to. And then, secondly, this KC team, right, as Sniper mentioned, that's a big thing for them. They're going to get better. I just think it's either going to be the Tigers or it's going to be KC right there at the end, as you mentioned. The Tigers with the run last year. Good on them for that run. Yeah. Ed mentioned, I think it was Ed, maybe he said it would have been a little lucky for them to have that run, but I think they've gotten better with Gleyber Torres. You have Riley Green probably taking a step forward. Tariq Skubal, Jack Flaherty, like this is going to be a solid team as well. So it's a Tigers KC run. I backed KC just as Sniper and Mike mentioned. There's that guy named Bobby Witt, and having that MVP candidate on your team makes a big difference.
All right, let's move to the AL West, where we have even more agreement, or just as much agreement, I should say. I will say in the NL East, we have a couple of different teams as opposed to everybody on the same one here. But listen, I like that you're all on the same team, because I got to be honest with you, I don't normally bet division winners or really win totals like we did last week. Check that show out. But there were some really compelling arguments. And when I see these numbers, like Sniper for the Rangers at plus 225. We talked about it a little bit last week, and I distinctly remember you leading off saying everything that could have gone wrong with the Rangers last year went wrong with the Rangers. So why is everything going to go right for them to win the division, the AL West, at plus 225?
Well, that's part of it. The offense had so many things go wrong. And one of the things that I came up with was Marcus Semien plays every single day, for example. He's never hurt. Played 162 games in 2023 when they won the World Series. So you stack the 17 playoff games on top of that. Of course, the guy's going to be exhausted as he gets up into his 30s, and so he's not going to have as good of a year. Seager was still great last year when he was on the field, but if you look at almost everybody else, like Adolis Garcia was a total nightmare. Evan Carter is a much better player than this, and he's going to be a much better player than he showed last year. Wyatt Langford in the last month last year gave us a little glimpse of how good he can be, and he hardly had any minor league experience before he got brought up last year. They added Jake Berger. They added Jock Peterson. Josh Young got hurt early in the season, hardly played at all. He's another prospect there. They have some major offensive firepower. They're going to be an amazing offense. And by the way, you add Tyler Mahle and Jacob deGrom back to that rotation there. Nathan Eovaldi is still there. Cody Bradford, it looked like a breakout last year, but then he got hurt. Again, so much went wrong. So I love them here. I don't think you can count the Astros out, obviously. I think the Mariners, if they get any kind of offense at all, are going to be there. But I love the Rangers this year.
Yeah, this is another one I like. I like your Royals play. I personally, AMags, I'm going to stay off the AL East. I just think, just personally, there's too much competition. Maybe it's my Orioles bias, a team that really wasn't mentioned. But again, there's a lot of good teams in that division. AL Central, I like the Royals. But this one too, AMags, you also like the Rangers. Talk to us.
Yeah, like the Rangers, and Sniper mentioned quite a lot of guys, right? That's a deep team, but then you also have guys that they added in Jock Peterson, Jake Berger. Like there's major talent on this team. And if you saw, you'll see it a little bit later in the show, but if you saw in my article, I think many of us here think that Corey Seager has MVP potential. So definitely plus 225. I've seen somebody said, I think they said it was a wrong number. I think it is as well.
Yeah, I know Joe Neuenfeld said it might have been the wrong number on KC. So, I mean, he thinks that number should be a lot shorter, and I think we all agree with that. Mike, round us out. We're 3 for 3 on the Rangers, right?
3 for 3 on the Rangers. Just echoing what these two gentlemen have said. I think that they have a ton of depth. I think they definitely have the best starting pitching rotation there. I actually think they might have the best starting pitching rotation in Major League Baseball if and when they're all healthy. I know it's a big claim. Obviously, you've got the Dodgers, so maybe I can limit that to the American League, and it's between them and the Yankees. But I really love the talent that they have. Tyler Mahle is someone who's phenomenal. Bradford's got so much potential. I think they're going to run Jacob deGrom out there as a number 4 starter to start the season to just keep him fresh, which I frankly like when we're talking about just winning division and having some success in the postseason. And then offensively, AMags mentioned Corey Seager. I think Corey Seager is still extremely talented, got a lot left in the tank. And that lineup, when that lineup is healthy, it's going to help Corey Seager a lot, and it's going to help Adolis Garcia a lot. You saw how much it really impacted Adolis Garcia last year when the lineup really wasn't operating at full strength. If this team remains healthy, I honestly believe that they are a favorite. Like, they're one of the top. They're probably the second best team in the American League behind the Yankees.
Yeah. I mean, if healthy, that's interesting. Sniper, maybe you don't have the answer to this question, but Jacob deGrom and his injury issues, do we know how he's doing right now and how he's sort of trending towards opening day?
He's throwing really hard. He looks great. He feels good. Again, like Mike said, Bochy basically said without saying it that Eovaldi is going to be their opening day starter. I think they're going to put deGrom toward the back of the rotation, and they might even skip him a few times in the rotation. They've got Kamar Rocker there slated as their number 6 starter, so they could kind of be creative and skip deGrom a few times. The key is, if they have that luxury down the stretch, to kind of do what we'll talk about the Dodgers are definitely going to do, and try to have everybody firing on all cylinders by the time they get to October.
All right, let's go to the NL East. AMags, we are looking at another plus 110 number, similar to what we saw with the Yankees and the AL East. Talk to me about the Braves.
Yeah, the Braves. Look, it seems like the band is finally back together, right? We had Albies go down this past year, right towards the end. You had Acuna basically done for the whole year almost. It's just the from start to finish, it was all bad for the Braves. And then you look, they still didn't have that bad of a season, right? So I think Matt Olson, he's a guy that I'm banking on this year with the rest of these guys back and healthy. I think he, last year when you even look at some of his underlying metrics, they don't look great. I think he takes another just kind of step back towards where he was, maybe not fully to the 50-plus home run range, but I think he definitely can get back there. So this is a team that when the pitching is on, you're going to get Spencer Strider back as well, right? That's a great 1-2 punch with Chris Sale and Strider. When you go into the playoffs, that's kind of how I start to think about these things. I think the offense does plenty. And, plus 110, again, I think it should be kind of right where the Yankees, we think they should be, like minus 120.
All right, Mike, you have a different take. You're going with the Mets.
Yeah, I like the Mets here a little bit, guys. Look, it's an impossible division. It's so competitive in this division. It's really what the AL East used to be, right? And now you look at the strength of these teams. Like, I like adding Juan Soto a lot to this lineup. I really think that he's going to make a big impact offensively, and I think they just finally have enough talent to really be competitive here. I'm so torn on the Phillies. It really just comes down to the price point here. Like, I think that on paper, these teams are a little bit closer than they should be. And I think the Mets are being discredited just a touch in the odds. So it's more just a play on the number, less so a play on the team itself. But if I had to play one here in this division, it would be the Mets here, plus 220.
Yeah, you double the number on the plus 110. That's where you find the Mets at plus 220 to win the NL East. All right, Sniper, settle the score. It's 1-1, one for the Mets, one for the Braves.
Yeah, I kind of wish I would have just gone Phillies, because I feel like the Braves, Phillies, and Mets, I wouldn't argue with anybody on any of these things. I ended up settling on the Braves. They felt similar to me offensively to the Rangers last year in terms of how many things went wrong. I mean, Matt Olson is better than he played. Ozzie Albies is better than he played, and he missed time. Austin Riley, again, he should be better. They lost Ronald Acuna Jr. to a torn ACL again. They now have better depth as they added Jurickson Profar there. Michael Harris is another guy who's a really, really good player there. In the rotation, they're going to get Spencer Strider back probably about a month to 6 weeks into the season, but with Sale there, Reynaldo Lopez, maybe a full season from Lopez this time. Schwellenbach looked good as a rookie. The bullpen looks very good again. There's a lot to like about the Braves, but again, there's a lot to like about the Mets, a lot to like about the Phillies. It's one of these three teams.
Yeah. And by the way, Ben just pulled up the BetMGM odds. We can get an even better number at BetMGM on the Braves at plus 125 instead of the plus 110. So again, always shop your lines. BetMGM doesn't always have the best number, but a lot of times they do. And so you want to capitalize on the plus 125 versus the plus 110 when you can. All right, let's move to the NL Central, where we do have some agreement, but I always have to start off with you, Sniper, because it's agreement on your Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, the first thing I'll say is I definitely thought about the Brewers here. I definitely thought it's possible the Reds somehow have everything go right because they had a lot of things go wrong last year. But the Cubs are the best team in this division, at least on paper. They've got to go out and get it done. They underachieved last year to 83 wins. If they just kind of get back to where they should be, the bullpen cost them a lot of games. I counted at one point last year when I was so frustrated in late May, and the bullpen had cost them 8 games. Obviously, you can't say they should have won all 8 of those, but you can give them 6 or something like that, or 5 if the bullpen's better. And they did trade for Ryan Presley. Things are a little more settled now. Craig Counsell kind of realized late in the season he could trust Porter Hodge, Tyson Miller. Nate Pearson is kind of an X factor there. Kyle Tucker in the lineup over Cody Bellinger is a big upgrade, at least when you look at what Cody Bellinger was last year versus how good Kyle Tucker can be. I think that's a major upgrade as well. There's breakout candidates like Pete Crow Armstrong, Matt Shaw. I like the Cubs to be a lot better than 83 wins this year, so I'm riding with them even at the plus 110.
All right, yeah. Cubs plus 110 at BetMGM. It might be plus 125 at other places. Again, these kind of change. And I got to be honest with you, you three, or at least 2 of you three, it might have been all 3, were so convincing on that Cubs win total. I kind of forgot to go out and bet that. I'll probably just take the division as well, because you all mentioned the division bet as well. And I actually think you mentioned it at the plus 125 number. I'll have to go back and listen to it, but it wouldn't shock me if just from listening to that, people started jumping on that line. Mike McClure, talk to me about the Cubs.
Love the Cubbies here. I think the rest of the division takes a bit of a step back. I kind of alluded to it in the last show that we did. I really believe Paul Skeens is moving markets because he's so dominant and shading win totals a little bit in certain directions in this division. And look, he's phenomenal and deserves it. But this Cubs team, I think, is extremely good. I think the addition of Matthew Boyd is drastically underrated. I think he fits this team and fits this ballpark extremely well. I think analytically they're headed in the right direction. And just kind of last show, I mentioned some of the lefties in that ballpark, lefty pitchers. They are building a stable of really strong left-handed pitchers here. I saw in the chat Justin Steele for NL Cy Young. I don't hate it. I think he probably finishes 3rd or 4th in that voting, but I do think he has a phenomenal year. I like the Cubs here. I think that they have massive potential. I'm talking like 95 wins kind of potential this season. I really like this lineup if they can stay healthy. We'll talk about some individual players a bit later, but having Kyle Tucker there, Seiya Suzuki, just there's a lot of potential in this lineup.
If you all really dial in onto Sniper's face over the last 30 seconds, he was trying to contain his smile and his homerism as Mike McClure was giving that take. So we've got 2 for the Cubs. And by the way, everybody in the chat, Daniel's in here. He says, seeing the Sniper and AMags back has me feeling good about the MLB coming back. Absolutely love to see that. Ed, Jeff, Joe, Jables, thank you for being in here. AMags, it's 3 for 3 on the Cubs. Is it not?
3 for 3 on the Cubs. Not too much more to say, but I have to say I was watching Sniper's face, and when Mike is probably one of the smartest guys, if not the smartest guy we know. Yeah. So and he'll say whatever he wants. That's what I believe. When he likes your team, right? When he's saying give your team props, you're sitting there like, all right, man, this is great. So I was watching his face, and 90, 95, 96 wins is probably more than I think they can get to. But again, that's just, I think you could probably win this division with 86 wins.
I was already perked up on the Justin Steele's only going to finish 3rd or 4th in Cy Young voting. Cause I was like, that's like the 90th, 95th percentile. Yep. And then he hits with the 95 wins. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to have a lot of fun.
Upside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I really encourage people to go back to the win total show, which it's in your feed, obviously. And by the way, when you search for, I've found this out recently. You know, when you go to podcasts, you go to the Early Edge, for example, and if you type in Early Edge win total, like it's going to take you right to that podcast, that win total show. I mean, people do that on YouTube all the time, but instinctively, I don't know that they know to do that with like Apple Podcasts and things of that nature. Spotify probably has that function as well. But Mike, one thing that really intrigued me last week, and you just referenced it, was the Chicago Cubs analytically going about it the right way. And I think that's confusing terminology, but you kind of spelled it out. The way they're racking up, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were the one that gave the analysis here, but last week you were talking about the way they're racking up the lefties. It's a really important part of what the Cubs are specifically trying to do. Can you just explain that before we get to the NL West a little bit more?
Yeah, so just looking at some park factors and everything there, the way it plays for right-handed hitters, it's a very difficult place for right-handed hitters in general. And they're racking up left-handed starters because teams will typically try to platoon a little bit, which is going to be right-handed hitters against left-handed pitching. And when you talk about Wrigley Field, it's definitely the most difficult environment for right-handed hitters in terms of in the National League. But another division opponent, the Milwaukee Brewers, same thing. So you're considering all the games played there. You get those series on the road at Milwaukee, and just some of the other places that they play. They're really building to some of the constraints that they have with stadium, things like that. And it's really nice to see that.
All right. The SportsLine account, otherwise known as Ben, says, as a Cubs fan myself, Cubs knocking on the door of 100 wins this season. Ooh. With the eyes emoji. Ben is in Chicago, big Chicago fan. So hopefully his Cubs can win the division, because then we'll all win money at this plus 125 number, plus 110. It looked like at BetMGM. All right, let's go to the NL West. Gentlemen, this one probably doesn't need a ton of analysis. AMags, I'm going to start with you. The Dodgers are a heavy favorite, perhaps a parlay piece in an NL division bet. Talk to me about the Dodgers at, I think, around minus 450.
Yeah, look, I think that we all probably can agree the Dodgers are the most likely team to win this division, right? So it's really tough to bet the division, in my opinion. If you want to take a little shot, you could go ahead. But over that long stretch, I think the Dodgers they do enough to win this division. Now, if you get in as a wild card team, like the team on my hat, and you have a little run like they're known to do, well, maybe then they can pull something off. So it's not always as easy to win it all. But I think for the division specifically, it's a big sample size. They're going to do enough to win the division.
For those that are listening to the podcast, the team on his hat is none other than the Chicago White Sox. So, yeah, you never know in Major League Baseball. Yes. Just kidding. It's the Arizona Diamondbacks. Very, very
Thank
true. They're live if they make the playoffs, just like most Major League Baseball teams. All right, Sniper, talk to me about the Dodgers.
I mean, the main thing that AMAG said that I want to latch on to is the sampling, which is there's 162 games in the regular season. The playoffs is a whole different story. That's a bunch of small samples, and they can get knocked out in the playoffs pretty easily, as we've seen many times before with the Dodgers. But they're just so talented and so deep. The thing I tried to go through the other day in my head when I got ready to pick this was I approached it totally different than every other division. I tried to say to myself, what would have to happen for the Dodgers to not win the division?
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought of was they would have to lose from the lineup Ohtani, Freeman, and Betts for well more than half the season, maybe 3/4 of the season, maybe even all the season very early on. And what are the odds that that's actually going to happen? Because even if they lose just one of those guys, they have enough depth to absorb it. And in the pitching staff, they're like 9 deep in the rotation. And they're going to, as I mentioned earlier, I was going to talk about the way that they work this. I'm not going to pick any Dodgers for the Cy Young. I'm not in my fantasy baseball team. I'm not going to have any Dodgers starters because it's a season-long points league, because they're going to limit the innings of everybody, whether it's Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki. Bobby Miller's going to get plenty of time in there. Tony Gonsolin, Dustin May, Clayton Kershaw. I think I hit everybody who's going to get a lot of time. But they're all good enough to be studs for stretches, but they're not going to throw more than 150 innings because they want to get to October completely healthy with everybody firing on all cylinders. That's how deep they are. If they need to kind of step on the gas and extend guys farther than they wanted just to win the division, they'll do that too. That's why I don't think there's any way they don't win the division.
Mike, I noticed Ben put the BetMGM odds up. They're up to minus 600, which is pretty crazy. Anything to add to the Dodgers' purchase of their division?
Yeah, the Dodgers' purchase of the division is it's definitely a way to describe it for sure. Look, I'm not betting anyone in this division. The Dodgers are going to win this division. If you want to lay the price, go for it. Yeah, can they win 120 games? They're capable of it. There's no reason to go try.
They won't.
They're not going to. I would take the under. I would take the under even all the way down to 102. I'm 101, so kind of. I mean, that's all they're going to need to have that division locked up. So not much to add on this conversation. It's really the Dodgers going to win the division, and we'll see what they do in the playoffs.
And Sniper, I seem to recall when we did the win totals that the Dodgers number was it 103.5?
I think it was 103.5.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of a stay away for me. Like I can totally see them going over, but I do think that they're going to take their foot off the gas at times, and because they're playing for the October. So I think they might just coast to 100 or something like that. Like Mike said, you could still take the under 102.5 and feel good about it because what they're playing for is the playoffs. That's it. They're just trying to win the division and then set up for the playoffs.
We have a comment in the chat from Knowledge Reigns Supreme. Again, everybody, thank you for being here. Hit the like button if you could. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel with perhaps notifications on. He says, what are your favorite player props to bet on? We're going to get there, actually. But first, let's do AL winner, NL winner, and World Series winner. Sniper, I'm going to start with you with an American League winner.
Yeah, I initially had the Rangers, and I decided, they just kind of had their good karma 2 years ago in the playoffs, and everything kind of fell into place for them. And since I already went with the Red Sox to win the AL East, I was like, hey, you know what? I'll just go with it, because if the Red Sox do win the AL East, that will mean a lot went right in their rotation with Crochet, Hawk, Buehler, Giolito. If all those guys are throwing as well as they can in that means that what Red Sox won the division, they could win the World Series. So I'll go with the Red Sox to win the American League.
I completely forgot they had Crochet. You probably mentioned it earlier, but you're just reminding me now. Okay, so if Matt is not going to take the Yankees, AMags, are you taking the Yankees?
I'm not taking the Yankees. And actually, I'm taking the team that Sniper just mentioned in the Rangers. I think as Mike, he said earlier, right, that pitching staff, there's definitely something to like there. And I put it in the chat too, to Sniper's point kind of about the Dodgers, how deep they are, how much needs to go wrong. You could lose a couple of those Rangers starters, and then you just bring up Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker. And I get that it's not always, and I wrote Jack Flaherty because Ed had the Tigers on my mind in that moment. So it should be Jack Leiter. I think I corrected it in the chat there, but yes, that was my message from the chat earlier. And it really is just, it's all about this Rangers team. And I really like the guys they got in that bullpen, just when you're going to get down to the end, right, you're going to need some arms and you need some lockdown guys. I don't doubt if you see them go out there, relief pitching is always on the market. There's always going to be somebody out there to go and get. I do not doubt if they go grab even 2 or 3 really high leverage guys, right around the trade deadline, if not a little bit earlier than that. So give me the Rangers. I would love to kind of hear what these guys think about it too. I know Sniper is on his other one, but
that's a good one.
Well, I mean, is anybody going to take the Yankees to win the ALCS? Mike McClure?
I like the Yankees.
Here we go.
I like the Rangers, though. I really do. I'm very, very pro Rangers, and I think we will ultimately get a Rangers-Yankees matchup in the playoffs this year, which is going to be absolutely incredible to watch. But I really like where the Yankees are at, and they've got enough power. I like what they've done with this lineup, though, because this lineup isn't exactly all about just hitting home runs. I think they actually will be able to produce runs when it gets more difficult to hit home runs in those late October days in the postseason, and that pitching staff. But again, as we know, you have to remain healthy throughout. And for me, I think that they're the best team, and I think the Rangers are the second best team in the American League. So give me the Yankees, straight chalk here.
All right. Mike, why don't you kick us off with a National League winner?
How about some more chalk? How about there's this team out in LA called the Dodgers. I think, essentially plus 145 to win the entire pennant. It's incredible. but it's deserved, right? This team is built for the postseason. They've had a lot of struggles in the postseason, but I like what we get here. And I think what we're going to see is just a lot of chalk. It's a rematch of the World Series. You're going to start to see some Dodgers fatigue in a big, big way, just like people have with the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL. It's what's happening, and it's what's going to happen because they put themselves in such a great position because they're allowed to go spend, right? And you're talking about massive markets. When you have this and the willingness to spend, I think that's what's going to rise to the top. So it's boring. Maybe it's actually not boring. It's very good, entertaining TV when they get together at the end. I like Dodgers here. I think they're going to win the NL.
You know, we're a day away from the Arnold Palmer Invitational teeing off tomorrow, Mike, and I know you and I cover a lot of golf. The Dodgers right now kind of remind me of what Scotty Scheffler is doing to the odds, because he's at such short odds in the tournaments that he plays in that it does push down, or longer the odds of some other teams. So let's start with some of those other teams, because Sniper, you are eschewing the Dodgers and you're headed to Philadelphia.
Yes, I am. I actually think if you look at the NL East, 2 of the 3 teams are not going to win the division. If you look at the NL West, the Diamondbacks are not going to win the division. Any of those would be a good bet for me to win the National League. Obviously, the Dodgers are the best bet to win the National League. That's why their odds are there. The Cubs could be in there as well. Hey, especially if they win 95 games. Hey, sign me up for that. Here's where I am on the Dodgers. Is we've seen it several years. We've seen what a crapshoot the postseason can be. And even last year, it was so close. They were down 2-1 to the Padres. They were on the ropes. We saw them a couple of years ago win 111 games and still lost 3 of 4 to the Padres in the playoffs. There was a study. I wish I would have written it down. Some statisticians figured out how many games you would have to play to make sure that the best team won in the playoffs. And in Major League Baseball, it was something like you'd have to play like a best of 85 or something like that. But we get it down to the NLDS and it's only 5 games. We get in the NLCS and it's only 7 games. For me, the chances of anybody else or the Dodgers, I'm going to go with anybody else. The problem is then I have to pick one team.
Yeah.
I do think the Phillies, they've now lost 5 of their last 6 playoff games, but they are still very well built for the postseason. If you look at the rotation with Wheeler, Nola, Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, Jesus Luzardo, 4 of those 5 guys will be in the rotation. The other guy can go to the bullpen. They added Jordan Romano, who looks great so far in the spring, so it tells me he's going to be a bounce back at closer in front of guys like Matt Strom, Orion Kerkering, and Jose Alvarado, who was bad last year, but I think he's going to bounce back. And then that lineup, which is so powerful, they can hit bombs at the drop of a hat. We saw it in the World Series against the Astros in Game 3 in 2022. I think they're going to go on another postseason run, so I've got the Phillies.
Yeah, I mean, the Phillies losing a lot of playoff games, but at least not as many in a row as the Baltimore Orioles, so things aren't as bad as they could be. Okay, AMags, we're pushing odds longer and longer, and we're going with the team that we referenced earlier, who at 16-1 is going to win the National League.
Yeah, it's, at least for me, I wanted to make sure we could kind of give you guys some entertainment, but also give you some of our good takes. So yes, I would have to agree wholeheartedly. Like the Dodgers seem like the team, and I would at least after this like to ask Mike a quick question about it. But I'm going to talk about my D-backs who are on my hat. If you're not watching at home, the D-backs at 16-1, the bullpen plus the lineup. It's really for me like those 2 things, and then let's not forget. We added Corbin Burns as the 1-1 and the number 1 starting pitcher to pair with Zach Gallen, to pair with Merrill Kelly, to pair with Brandon Pfaadt, who has postseason experience. I think that starting pitching now paired with this bullpen, I really love Justin Martinez. I think he's a name that you should absolutely know. He's going to be in your fantasy leagues accruing saves this year. You have AJ Puck at the back end as well. Just the bullpen. For me, that it's going to cut games short. They're going to score enough runs. I think they're going to be one of the best offenses. And to the point about the Dodgers, I don't think there's going to be a ton of strain for this D-backs team to get in, honestly. I think that you've already heard my take on the Padres. I think they take, that step back and they really aren't that competitive. And then all of a sudden you're looking at really just a Dodgers D-backs top 2 right there in that. So for me, I think that they're going to be able to rest guys. They're going to know kind of where they're at. They're going to have their spot locked up. So I do like taking them. And, to the point about the Dodgers, Mike, because we can so confidently say they're going to win the division, that's going to give them the bye, right? So really, then they have to win one series to get to the NLCS, and we're at plus 145 to win it all. I would have to think they're not going to be an underdog in either of those series, right? So how does that break down for you math-wise, just when you think about if it was like a 2-leg parlay for them to win both?
Yeah, I think you have to understand the potential opponents and just the potential for them to be an underdog or near an even money price point. And I mean, the way it's at right now, they could be, depending on the matchup, they could be a minus 300 in that first series still, and maybe minus 170 against someone else. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that is a candidate for a money line rollover at that point. I think you're probably better off just playing the future number if you like it. Or if you're really looking for some extra value there, essentially just playing exactas, which would be World Series matchup, not predicting winner, just name the finalist kind of market, where you pair the Dodgers with whoever you like in the AL. Yeah, it's a tough situation. They're a favorite like that for a very clear reason, but I don't think there are a lot of creative ways to back the Dodgers that are going to offer much better return than that either, unfortunately.
All right. We're probably not done talking about Dodger players. I will say we're going to get to AL, NL MVP, AL Cy Young, NL Cy Young, a couple of other futures, but let's now transition. We just covered the AL and the NL in terms of division winners. Let's transition to perhaps our favorite player prop. So Sniper, I'm going to start with you. If you had a season-long player prop you wanted to give out right now, what would it be?
I latched right on to Pete Alonso to lead the National League in RBI. It was plus 1,400. Actually, I was lead the majors in RBI, so the plus 1,400. One of the main things for me was, obviously, you're going to look at the addition of Juan Soto. Francisco Lindor is now batting leadoff. So Alonso's going to be in the 3-hole in that lineup. They're going to be on base a lot. He's going to have a ton of RBI opportunities. Mark Vientos looks like he's going to be behind him along with Brandon Nimmo. So there's good protection there in terms of he's probably not going to get walked a lot, and he is going to bat with guys in scoring position an awful lot of times. And the back third of the Mets lineup is not going to be bad either. So he's going to have a ton of RBI opportunities. Another key for me is he never, ever gets hurt. He played 162 games last year. Between him playing every day and in that cushy lineup spot and being a power hitter, everything kind of clicks into place for me, and I like that number.
Yeah, that's a great take. Great argument. Okay, let's move to Mike, your favorite season-long player prop.
Back to Juan Soto here. I like Juan Soto to hit some dingers. Over 33.5. You can find this actually all the way down to minus 105. So maybe you could pull out and get a 32.5 at some point. I think this is a bit of an overreaction to the park shift, right? Because the connotation is Citi Field versus Yankee Stadium. We know Yankee Stadium is a great place to hit home runs. Citi Field is not a great place for overall run scoring, but it's actually middle of the pack in terms of hitting home runs themselves. So I don't have the exact number in front of me. I did this analysis at the week after the World Series, and I'm trying to remember my notes, but I believe if you look at every home run Juan Soto hit last year, all of them would have been a home run at Citi Field except for one. So there's basically a little bit of an overreaction to the playing environment. And why I think some of that might be, at least when I'm running through projections here, the Phillies. If you're talking about left-handed hitters, Citizens Bank Ballpark is one of the best hitting environments for home run hitters for lefties. He gets plenty of matchups there. And just looking across the National League, he still gets matchups in Atlanta. Think about those 100-degree days where we're essentially betting overs on 11.5 team total or 11.5 totals. There's just a lot of good situations here. So I think it's being overstated, the move from Yankee Stadium. So I know I gave this one on HQ as just like a favorite long shot. I think it will require either Ohtani or Judge getting hurt for him to flat out beat them. But I definitely think there are scenarios where we're talking about 45 plus home runs from Juan Soto.
Go ahead, Sniper.
I was just going to piggyback, Mike, on that. Soto hit more home runs on the road last year than at home. He had 21 road home runs and 20 in Yankee Stadium.
So FYI, if you're listening to the podcast and you're not 100% sure what Mike was referring to with the long shot, it was Jeff Stenberg's comment, which was up on the screen. Juan Soto plus 3,000 to lead the Major League Baseball in home runs. So that, Mike, that's what you were referring to when you were talking about the sort of long shot play you gave out on HQ.
Yeah, long shot play. But you could find it plus 3,500 somewhere too. But yeah, to back Sniper up, that was exactly it. It was more home runs on the road. Only one of them was a quote unquote Yankee Stadium home run. Every other, so basically you would have hit 40 last season at Citi Field.
All right, so let's go to AMags, your season-long player props. Now, it's interesting because I believe it was you that mentioned Cody Bellinger earlier in the show, but it was Swaggy McNolix who is mentioning now Pete Crow Armstrong and his stolen bases. By the way, that is a really did I pronounce that right? Swaggy McNolix? Is that like the Knowles? I'm not sure what's going on there, but it sounds fun.
I think that's McNolegs.
No legs.
No legs.
Oh, I thought it was like the Knowles. Okay, either way. Okay, so talk to me. You've got a Cody Bellinger prop and you've got a Pete Crow Arm PCA prop. What is it?
Well, we're talking about legs. I'll go with the guy that has some really great legs, not to be weird, but he's fast, all right? And it's Pete Crow Armstrong. He's in the 99th percentile in sprint speed. This guy is quick. He is willing to take the extra base. He is willing to run. I wrote this in the Discord maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. The number was 29.5 for his stolen bases on FanDuel. Well, I found it at 29.5 on MGM today as well. So it's moved on FanDuel. It's moved up in our favor, actually, or not our favor if you were trying to bet it now, but in our direction. I do think this should be like 32 or 33.5 at worst. Getting in under 30 stolen bases for us right now, like you have to do that. This is a guy that, truthfully, I actually bet him. And if you read my article, I think it came out today. It might've been yesterday. I bet him to lead in stolen bases. Look, it's plus 4,000. If you think that this guy can take 40 bases here, I think it was only plus 250 or 225 to steal 40. I truthfully don't like that. It feels like it's not enough meat on the bone, in my opinion. But at that point, if he's going to get 40, he's going to be in the 40-50 range. I'll take him to lead the league. Maybe Ellie De La Cruz gets hurt. Maybe Corbin Carroll, we saw a shoulder injury. Maybe he gets hurt, right? Just for this guy, the numbers, I truthfully don't have all of them exactly in front of me, but there was a 2-month stretch of last year where, and this is what you could say about Pete Crow Armstrong. Well, what if he doesn't hit? Is he going to get sent down? Is he not going to play? Is he not going to get on base enough to steal? There was a 2-month stretch where his batting average was like 125. All right. And he still stole 20 bases during that stretch. I think whether he hits or he doesn't, his defense is going to keep him in center field. He's going to be good enough that you have to play him, right? And so from that aspect, to stay in the lineup, to be able to be given a leash to work through your issues, I certainly think that 30th stolen base is going to be there for us. It's right there, plus 2,000 on MGM. Shop around. I think it was maybe 4,000 on one of the other books, whatever they are. But even at that number, you could throw a little bit on it. I would rather do that than take the 40 plus, I guess, is my point here on the question. Just at that point, for 2-to-1 odds, I'd rather say, hey, I think he wins it all. And I don't know if you want me to say anything else on that, if there's any other questions on that one, but I'm going to go to Cody Bellinger real quick because I think as we saw with Juan Soto, the left-handed hitting Juan Soto last year, right? That move to Yankee Stadium as a lefty is huge. And when you look at the expected home runs for Cody Bellinger last year, if he played in Yankee Stadium, it would be 24 home runs, not his 18. I think it was 18 he hit. Maybe it was 19. But he was under this number last year, just under. When you, or maybe it was his projection, but regardless, the projection I know is just under this. I think he goes over this. I think he goes well over this. I think he's in the mid-20s. I think if we don't see him in the mid-20s, there's a real problem. All right. Cody Bellinger has already shown this spring that, he's kind of with it, right? Like the swing looks good. The ball's jumping off the bat. I'm a fan. So you're going to have to play him again with the defense. Guys that are this good with their defense, especially at a premium position, the Yankees need him in center field. If they're not going to play him in center field for some reason, and maybe they put Grisham there, Aaron Boone already said, I'm going to slide Bellinger over to right, or I'm going to move him where I need to. Bellinger is going to kind of be that guy that stays in there. Grisham, maybe go play your Gold Glove center field. We'll move Bellinger over. He's going to be in the lineup. I think he's going to be in the lineup more than enough to hit, his 21st home run as a Yankee this year. So just those two numbers, I felt like they were too low. And for me, I'm more than happy to throw down on.
All right. That's 2 picks from AMags. Now let's transition to AL MVP pick, NL MVP pick. We're going to go Cy Young and even Manager of the Year. We're covering a lot. Make sure you're dialed in. You're going to see so much more of these 3 guys as we approach baseball season, which is very exciting to me. Okay, let's start with you, Sniper. AL MVP pick.
Bobby Witt Jr. I mean, he just scraped the surface of how good he can be last year. You could argue he's the best all-around player in baseball right now, which would be tough because Shohei Ohtani's going back to pitching. But we'll see. We'll see how Ohtani pitches coming back. And some of this is probably predicated on maybe Judge gets hurt for a little bit, but you could also argue they were close to being neck and neck for a while last year as well. Obviously, I think Judge should have won, but Witt was right there, finishing second. I think that Witt is going to win probably multiple MVPs in his career. So what better time to start than right now?
All right, Mike McClure, we're headed to Corey Seager, correct?
Corey Seager, but I do love Bobby Witt. I think the reason why I'm giving Seager here is the gap from Witt to Seager is too large, in my opinion. I think that, not saying that Bobby Witt's not deserving of being plus 450, plus 500, but I think Corey Seager should be in the plus 600, plus 700 range. And a lot of that is still, I do think that while it is an individual award, having team success is definitely going to help your cause. And I think that is what's going to happen with the Rangers here. I think the Rangers are going to be very good this season. And I think Corey Seager's got a lot left in the tank, whether it's racking up doubles like crazy, hitting home runs. I just think that he's still extremely talented. I love where he's going to be hitting in this lineup. And again, I think this lineup is going to find some success. And I think there's going to be a lot of good energy in that building. So I like Corey Seager here, plus 1,100.
All right, AMags, we go from plus 450 to plus 1,100 to plus 6,000. Who is this person that's going to win the American League MVP?
His name is Riley Green, and he is now a stud left fielder for the Detroit Tigers. And it's truthfully for me, I wanted to give us something to bet on in each of them. I think Bobby Witt is really a natural selection to win the award this year. So I have to give you all the props in the world there, Sniper. But if you want a long shot, this guy, Riley Green, he's a top pick. He finally last year, he's an all-star. He's taking steps forward. He's going to be hitting behind Gleyber Torres now. So likely to have, I like Gleyber. So I think he's likely to get on base for him and give him some more opportunities to not only drive runs in, but just to create opportunities at that top of that lineup. Also, as you mentioned, team success. We said that this division's wide open. If the Tigers come in and win the division and it's behind a rather big effort from Riley Green, I think that is a big piece of it. So now he's played good defense. He's driven in runs and created opportunities for his team. He was near 5 WAR last year, right? So maybe he takes that step to like 6 or 7 even. I know that sounds crazy to get up into the 7 and 8s, but a guy like this, a young growing talent, he really is still, just kind of getting his feet wet. And in this division with how wide open it is, if you win, you have a guy like Tariq Skubal that's an ace. You have a guy like Flaherty that's an ace, in my opinion. That team success then paired with the good defense, the good offense, it all kind of comes together. I wish he stole more bases, but you know what? At the end of the day, if you do enough with the bat, you have a good enough WAR. I think it's going to be enough. So plus 6,000. I just think this number is way too good for us not to put a ticket on.
All right. Well, let's stick with the long shot theme because we're going to go to an NL MVP pick. And well, here's a guy who can steal bases, AMags. You like another long shot at 45-1. You mentioned him just a few minutes ago.
Yeah. So I apologize. I just lost my spot here on the sheet. So skip me and come back to me real quick. Oh, there you go. It came up. All right. It's Corbin Carroll. Thank you for giving me, because I couldn't find the spot where I was. But yes, it was Corbin Carroll. And it goes to the point of the D-backs here. So if this guy is going to, yes, we've seen him steal bases, right? That 30 to 50 range, maybe he takes the title for stolen bases this year. If he's going to be healthy, it's an issue with that shoulder or whatever you want to call it. It was the same kind of thing Tatis had, I believe. And, whatever is going to happen with it, he's supposed to be healthy. If he stays healthy, and we see that rookie of the year type of a year from him, I really do think this guy can win the NL MVP. Now, it's Shohei Ohtani's award to lose, especially back to pitching, right? Like it really is. And then if Shohei Ohtani's not around, well, then it's probably Juan Soto's award to lose. But if you get a stellar effort from this guy and they start to tear it up and get into that playoff race, I really think that, Corbin Carroll and this D-backs team could do something. So if he's in that, 6-7 WAR range, he starts to get up there. He can make definitely make some motion at 4,500. I just think it's too good for us not to play.
All right. How about 1,500? Sniper, who do we like as an NL MVP pick?
Yeah, maybe I'll go a little homer on this one with Kyle Tucker. Look, Tucker was making the leap last year from just a star to a superstar before he got hurt, and it was a shin injury that kind of lingered. He finished 5th in MVP voting in 2023. Last year, he had 4.7 WAR in only 78 games, so he was on pace to have over 9 WAR for a full season. He goes to Wrigley here in his contract year. I think he's going to have a huge contract year. He's a left-handed hitter, so we don't have to worry about how much Wrigley suppresses right-handers here. And again, play into something that Mike said earlier, if the Cubs are going to win 95 games, they're going to run away with that division. So you've got the narrative behind you there in a large market. Everything falls into place right here for the Kyle Tucker play.
All right. Kyle Tucker at plus 1,500. And then we're going with the name that we talked about quite a bit, Mike McClure, Juan Soto.
Yeah, how about Juan Soto here, plus 550? Look, I think the guys said it right. I think it's Shohei Ohtani's award with him coming back to pitching, right? If Ohtani goes out there and hits his home runs and, just doesn't get completely obliterated pitching, he's going to win this award. But when you throw in the addition of pitching here, there's an extremely increased likelihood of an injury when you're talking about someone going out there pitching, right? And he's obviously had a little bit of an injury concern. I expect them to be overly cautious with him if there is any sort of injury situation that does pop up, which means he could miss time at certain points of the year, at least from the pitching. So if he's missing time pitching, I think Juan Soto is the guy here, plus 550. I really think the numbers should be a little bit closer together because Juan Soto is just now 26 years old. He is just now about to enter the prime of his career, which sounds a little insane to say because we've been dealing with this guy for what seems like forever already, but he's literally age 26 season, competitive division, a lot of great environments. So again, you get to play those big games in Philly and Atlanta to really put up numbers. And one thing that Juan Soto is really good at, hitting home runs, but he's also good at just simply getting on base and putting up stats, right? He's going to have a great stat profile. It really, to me though, it just comes down to, do you think Shohei's going to pitch all season and remain healthy? And at this price point, I'm willing to bet against it.
All right. Juan Soto plus 550. Daniel Greer says Ronald Acuna, NL MVP, plus 3,000. That's certainly a great number. All right, let's move on to the AL Cy Young. We don't have to spend too much time on those, or as much time, because we have some agreements. So, Mike McClure, I'm going to start with you. Cole Reagans.
Ooh.
Yes, I like a little homer pick in Kansas City, but again, team success. He's going to be the workhorse. I think he could approach 200 innings this season. I believe he threw 184 last year, 223 strikeouts in that. There basically was top 5 in the league in terms of strikeouts. I think that there's room for improvement there. I really do, and I think there's opportunities within this division. You get the lowly White Sox. I think that the rest of the teams kind of take a step back. So I think he's going to rack up wins. I think he's going to rack up strikeouts and just innings pitched. So I like Cole Reagans here, 9-1.
And Sniper, you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I do think it was 186 in the third innings last year. That can get him to 200 innings. If he throws 200 innings, he could strike out 250 batters. And he didn't have, I know it's not the main thing anymore, but he finished 4th in Cy Young voting. Seth Lugo finished 2nd. I think his ERA is going to be lower, but the main thing was he didn't have the greatest luck on wins and losses. He was 11-9 on a playoff team. I feel like he can win 15-17 this year, and that will get the job done, catapult him up from 4th to 1st here. So I love Reagans.
This is just making the plus 270 to win the division that much more compelling. That one and the Rangers one. I really like those division winner bets that we talked about earlier. All right, we're going a different direction, AMags, and we're going with another long shot. Talk to us.
It's the I guess the name of the game for this show for me, Sia, is some of these long shot type bets, plus 5,000, plus 6,000. Here's plus 5,000 for you. Bryce Miller to win the AL Cy Young. Look, pitching in the best pitchers park is certainly not going to hurt him. And then, he's got some great guys around him that can certainly push him on that pitching staff. They've made him better, in my opinion, in the past few years. But 180 innings last year, right? Finally got up to that mark after 130 the previous year. You look at some of his stuff plus metrics on his pitches. And I just wanted to give you guys this number because he added this splitter. I believe it's splitter sinker, whichever one. And it comes out to be 113 on the stuff plus, right? So he just adds a pitch. Now, stuff plus is usually around 100 is average or so. So for pitching, when you get up to 113, for a specific pitch, you're well above average, right? It's pretty nasty. It's getting to that nasty range. I like to look at the stuff plus on Fangraphs if you go on there and take a look. But you just start looking at some of his underlying stuff. I get the expected ERA wasn't as good as the ERA under 3 last year, but I just think as this guy continues to build up his portfolio of pitches, he continues to get better. He's refining everything. He should have a steady spot in that rotation. Sniper kind of schooled me a little bit last year when we were picking some Cy Young guys, and he's like, well, you got to make sure you're getting towards that innings mark. And he's right. You got to have a bunch of innings, 180 last year. I really like to see that. So I think he's in a good enough environment. And if you wanted to, I also did put a little bit on his battery mate here, whatever you want to call him, Logan Gilbert, 16-1, I think is actually a pretty good number as well to take a stab on Cy Young.
All right, we'll transition to the National League Cy Young and Sniper. We're going to start with you, plus 750. Who are we talking about?
Yeah, we're going with Zach Wheeler. You want to talk about workload? He's the biggest workhorse in the league right now. So he was not the favorite here. That was Paul Skeens. And, there's actually a really good chance Skeens could win the Cy Young. He's that good. But Wheeler, for me, I kind of thought 2 years ago, Garrett Cole was the best pitcher who had never won a Cy Young, and he won it. Last year, Chris Sale, if you look at his career resume, was one of those guys who was always the bridesmaid, never the bride. He came out and he won the Cy Young. I think it's Wheeler's turn right now there. So I've got Wheeler. I like the Phillies. As you know, he's going to be a workhorse. He's going to have a ton of innings. So I think this is his time. Just to piggyback on what AMags said for a second, we were talking about Tyler Glasnow last year with that, and I said he's just not going to have the workload. We just got a question in the chat from Jeff Semberg, asked about Crochet. That's the main thing with Crochet. 146 innings last year. Before that, his career high was 54 and a third. The Red Sox are going to hold him to like 160. That's just not going to be enough to win the Cy Young. He's not going to have a big enough workload.
Yeah, fair enough. Really, really good point there. All right, we're going to go to Mike McClure. Your pick is now you've got the longest shot at plus 2,500. Who are we going with?
How about Dylan Cease? I think that he could be the one real bright spot for the Padres. I know the division is tough on paper when you look at having to face the Dodgers, but it is still a pretty good home base in terms of the pitching environment at Petco. And I like the strikeout upside and just the innings pitch. We saw 189, but the year before that, 177, 184, 165, has had no fewer than 214 strikeouts. So we've seen a pretty consistent body of work from him. And they really gave him that long leash last year in terms of a pitch count a lot of times. And I think that that's going to be a good thing for him. I think he's going to, it hurts the innings sometimes when he has to use that many pitches, but it does help the strikeout numbers. I think if he can pitch between 190 and 200, we're talking 230-ish strikeouts. If Skeens doesn't, pitch the entire year, I think it's kind of wide open here.
All right, Dylan Cease at plus 2,500. And AMags, you've got a guy at plus 1,400 to win the NL Cy Young.
Another D-back here, and I definitely wore the hat for a reason here. See it. Look, Corbin Burns finally going back home, going out west to the desert. I think this is a great move for him. He signed that deal for a reason, and he now goes there to be their bona fide ace. Last year, just a stellar season from him. And as I mentioned, in the West out there, it may be all about them kind of taking that second spot. So I actually don't doubt if he has a really nice playoff for them as well. And, when you're looking at the other teams, we've talked about the Rockies, and we haven't mentioned, I don't know if Big Cheesy's in here. I think he's a Giants fan. We haven't mentioned the Giants, but you have those teams I just don't think are going to be as good this year. I think he can beat up on them, and in a nice environment there for him. So, yeah, give me plus 1,400 on Corbin Burns.
All right, we've got some other Cy Young award winners, or at least what we think might be Cy Young award winners in the chat. Swaggy says Steele plus 4,000. We've got, let's see, Steele plus 4,000 from Steve S as well. Max Fried plus 2,500 from Slim Walby. Yamamoto NL Cy Young from Daniel Greer at plus 2,500. So a lot in the chat. I'm sure I missed one, so my apologies. It wasn't on purpose for missing your take, but okay. We've got a lot of Cy Young picks, a lot of NL, AL, the chat contributing. Go ahead. Yeah.
Real quick. So we had a question on Seth Lugo here I don't know if Mike has a thought, but obviously, one of the top finishers last year, but if that's the best he can do or his ceiling and he still didn't win it, what's the thought?
I'm not in on Seth Lugo at all, really. I think he's going to be fine and serviceable, but I think he's way above his head and kind of had some good fortune relative to, Cole Reagan's on the staff not getting those wins. So I really would caution against the Seth Lugo play. I think that he is fine, but I don't know. He just, to me, doesn't profile as someone at age 35 to be winning a Cy Young.
How about Alcantara? That's the one I missed. Jeff Stenberg and other people had mentioned Alcantara earlier in the show. Sniper, any thoughts at him at plus 1,400?
It's intriguing. I mean, it's easy to say you don't love somebody coming off Tommy John surgery, but Justin Verlander just won it coming off Tommy John surgery a couple of years ago. And Sandy Alcantara is one of the biggest workhorses in the league in terms of finishing his own games. He always talks about how he wants to finish his own games. He wants to go deep in the games. You don't know if they're going to have training wheels on his workload or not. You don't know if they're going to trade him. And if they trade him to the AL, then you lose your NL ticket. But if they trade him to the NL, how's that team going to treat his workload? It's tough there, but it is intriguing because he did just win it a few years ago for the Marlins.
All right, let's transition and close out with AL and NL Manager of the Year. We'll start with AL. Sniper, I'm going to go right back to you. Who's winning the AL Manager of the Year?
Yeah, look, Manager of the Year is tough. You just have to try to find somebody who you think is going to exceed expectations in terms of the general public. And since I picked the Red Sox to win the AL East, I've got to pick Alex Cora to win Manager of the Year. So that was the thinking there, and that's all you need.
All right. AMags, talk to me about, we go from plus 750 to plus 900.
Yeah, AJ Hinch. Look, I think the Astros cheating scandal is kind of behind him now, right? Everyone's kind of over and done with it. Again, team success, if they can win that division, now it'll be, multiple years in the playoffs back to back. They've won the division, so they've improved. As Sniper said, I think that would be enough for him to win.
All right. And by the way, I think I said Sandy Alcantara's name. I went phonetical. It is Alcantara, right? Like you said, I said Alcantara. So Daniel's ribbing me for that. Well-deserved. Okay, so let's go to plus 1,300, Mike McClure.
Matt Quatrero, but I like the AJ Hinch call. And what I think is going to happen here, guys, is I think it actually is going to be whoever wins the AL Central if it's not the Guardians. If the Guardians don't win the AL Central, I think whichever team does, because we saw some success, especially very late from Detroit. We saw success last year from the Kansas City Royals. Whichever team gets it done there likely gets it. It does come down to some of those team awards. And what I want to, like, if say the Yankees win the division, like I think, right? I don't think it's going anywhere in the Yankees because I think the connotation is that the Yankees are just an elite team and that's why they're winning, right? But when you get to these stories like the AL Central, you really get to give the manager a lot more credit than some of those other bigger markets. And that's ultimately what I think it's about. So I like this, and I actually don't hate, again, sprinkling on Hinch at plus 900 as well.
Okay, very interesting that NL Manager of the Year. We are all in agreement. So let's see. Who wants to give out this play? AMags, who is the consensus NL Manager of the Year at plus 500?
Well, I will do this. I'm going to keep it very short because I want Sniper to rib on it for a minute because it's his guy here. But the one thing that I was looking at was that I think he's been, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like top 2 in this award for a few years now, right? So as you mentioned, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I think that this year is, that the Cubs take down the division and Craig Counsell wins the award.
Yeah, I've actually voted for him to win the award several times when he was with the Brewers. And
Shocking.
I was always frustrated that he didn't. No, it was when he was with the Brewers, though. He's only,
okay,
only his second year with the Cubs.
My bad.
I couldn't believe he never won it because I thought he was the best manager. He had 4 times second place when he was with the Brewers, and I thought he deserved to win almost all of those. Look, it's Dave Roberts is not going to win no matter what. He can't win manager of the year because the Dodgers are so good. If you think the Diamondbacks are going to win the West, go with Torey Lovullo because if they do, he'll win the award. In the NL East, I don't think any of those managers are going to. Or NL East, I don't think any of those managers are going to win it because so many people expect at least one of the 3 to win the division. Yep. So that's why I was like, I guess I'll go with Counsell here. That was it. That was all it took for me to write him down.
Mike, my favorite bets when it comes to stuff like this are the process of elimination ones where it's like, well, it can't be this guy, can't be this guy, can't be this guy. There's only 1 or 2 left. It's Craig Counsell, right?
It's got to be Craig Counsell here. Again, if we're right on the Cubs, I think the story is kind of already written there. So yeah, it's Counsell for me.
Yeah, I think we are right on the Cubs. Again, my favorite division winner bets and probably the win total bets from last week, Cubs, Rangers, Kansas City Royals. I'm going to dive in on those. Basically, those would be my 3 bets before the season. Those will be the 3 teams I'm just rooting for because of my financial interest. All right, well, we just covered a ton. We've got a lot more to cover. These guys have a lot more to cover, of course. And let's maybe, I don't know, final thoughts. I mean, let's just go back to the World Series winner real quick. Sniper, I'm going to start with you. Obviously, you had the Phillies because, you know, you're kind of playing the number here, but final thoughts as we go into this season, or at least after giving out some of these World Series winners and division winners.
I mean, the Dodgers are a great play here. The Yankees are a great play. If you wanted to go with one of the chalk plays, that's never bad because it's still a plus number here. I went with the Phillies, like I said, because I just went with the Phillies and Red Sox in the World Series, and I thought the Phillies probably line up a little bit better. But there are several other teams who definitely could win the World Series this year. I think you could get up to 12, 13, 14 teams and make a case to win the World Series, and I wouldn't heavily push back. I don't think it's as much of the game's unfair, just give the Dodgers the trophy. It's not like that at all. I think there are a lot of teams who could win the World Series.
Well, both things can be true. They might not definitely win the World Series, and the game could also be unfair. I think there's room for both of those. That's how I see it, at least. But again, I'm not the baseball guy. You guys are. So that's just some casual person's opinion. AMags, any final thoughts as we close the show?
Go Yankees. Honestly, I don't know. I didn't talk much about them because I am a superstitious person, probably silly. Because when it comes down to betting, you know, a lot of times there's just not much value on their numbers. But I do agree with Mike. There is some this year. So go Yankees. I'll be rooting for them. And then we got a bunch of tickets out there on some longer shots. As Sniper said, it's anybody's game.
Mike, is it anybody's game? Any final thoughts here?
Well, it is an unfair game. If you've read Moneyball, it's the art of winning an unfair game. Huh. And I'm going to go with the underdog Yankees to win. They will be an underdog to the Dodgers. It's the feel-good story we're all rooting for. Look, I mean, when you have a team like this that hasn't won in 16 years, it would be nice to let a generation of Yankee fans taste some success. And I think
I feel so sorry for them, man. It's been since 2009. That's a long time for them. I feel
long
so bad.
time.
It is, though, AMags. I mean, that was definitely an underhanded compliment or endorsement, obviously.
I will take all of the Mike McClure backing of the Yankees that I could get. So, yeah. You know, say what you want. It certainly will be nice. I will just want to mention I was around for quite a few of the Yankees World Series. So
now, one of my favorite things to do is to say, if you could have gone back to the Yankees World Series parade in 2009 and said, by the way, before you guys win another World Series, the Cubs are going to win 1, the Nationals are going to win 1, the Astros are going to win 2, the Giants are going to win 3. They would have been like, no, get at it.
Royals,
the Red Sox are going to win a couple. I mean, just wow.
Daniel says, yeah, we feel so bad for the Yankees and Dodgers fans. And Joe, noted Minnesota fan, says Twins are winning the World Series.
Yeah, that's
34-year slump.
Yep.
The last time the Twins won the World Series was when the last time Washington won the World Series. Won the Super Bowl. Yeah. 1991.
That's one name you couldn't have said there, Sniper. Right? Yeah. The Yankees have won since the Twins have won. So it's all right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining the show again. So much more content coming up. Make sure you're subscribed to this podcast. Make sure you go to the YouTube SportsLine channel and make sure you're subscribed to that as well. Whether it's baseball, basketball, football, soccer, UFC, you name it, we've got it on The Early Edge. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time right here on The Early Edge.